Thank you very much, Trevor, for the quick technical. And as always, anyone, if you have any issues, please just contact Trevor directly. Well, again, good morning, and to our colleagues, to our friends, to our supporters, and to those whose lives has been forever changed by the decision to speak up. Demonstrating not only the Ethics Institute's global footprint, but also the importance of whistleblowing or global appreciation of the role of whistleblowers. I want to welcome attendees, and I'm going to read all these countries out because I think it is just says something. I want to welcome attendees from, of course, South Africa, but then also Zimbabwe, the Czech Republic, Great Britain, the USA, Mexico, Canada, Liberia, Eswatini, Lesotho, Botswana, Australia, New Zealand, Portugal, Mozambique, Namibia, Benin, India, Ghana, Tanzania, United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, Singapore, Turkey, Lebanon, Azerbaijan, Sweden, Belgium, Central African Republic, Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria, Ireland, Austria, Rwanda, Togo, and the Republic of the Congo. And I see just hearts, and that's lovely. Yes, indeed, it is fantastic. So I'm Dr. Liesel Groenewald, the the CEO of the Ethics Institute. And today, as we commemorate World Whistleblower Day, we pause to recognize the extraordinary courage of individuals who choose integrity over silence. Whistleblowers are often described as guardians of accountability because they expose corruption, fraud, abuse of power, unsafe practices, and conduct that undermines organizations and societies. Their actions protect public resources, as we have seen, and strengthen institutions and help preserve trust. And in South Africa, we know this better than most. Many of the revelations that expose state capture, corruption, and maladministration would never have come to light without our whistleblowers, who were prepared to speak up, often at tremendous personal cost. But while society benefits from their courage, whistleblowers themselves often pay a heavy, heavy price. And that price is rarely paid by whistleblowers alone. Behind every whistleblower stands a family, a spouse who carries the burden. Behind every whistleblower, there are children who experience uncertainty and fear, parents who worry, friends who watch helplessly, entire households whose lives are disrupted by a decision that was motivated not by self-interest, but by conscience. Too often we focus on the whistleblower and forget those who walk the journey alongside them. Families experience the consequences of retaliation. They experience the loss of income, social isolation. They experience anxiety, depression, legal battles, and sometimes even threats to their own safety. Many children do not understand why their parents suddenly lost a job, why they must move house, or why fear and stress have become constant companions in the household. Spouses frequently become counselors, protectors, breadwinners, and sources of strength all at once, or they choose to step away. These are the visible victims of corruption. And these are the people we must remember on World Whistleblower Day, because whistleblowing is not merely just an individual act. It is often a family experience. And this reality is precisely why South Africa's ongoing efforts to strengthen whistleblower protection are so important. The proposed Protector Disclosure Bill that's currently out for public comment, maybe that has closed, represents a significant and necessary step forward. It recognizes that protection cannot simply mean prohibiting occupational detriment. Protection must be broader, and it must acknowledge the realities that whistleblowers and their families face. The bill seeks to strengthen reporting mechanisms, expand protections, and provide practical support measures that have long been absent from our framework. But is that enough? And we will explore that. Importantly, it reflects the recognition that whistleblowers should not be expected to carry the burden of protecting society on their own. And this is progress. But legislation alone will never be enough. Law cannot restore broken relationships, remove the trauma experienced by families, cannot replace years of lost income, or undo psychological scars caused by whistleblowing. Ultimately, whistleblower protection is not just a legal issue, it's a human issue, it's an ethical issue, and it's a societal issue. We need leaders who understand that retaliation is not merely unlawful, it is unethical. We need organizations to create safe speak up cultures. And we need psychological support and many more. So today, as we commemorate World Whistleblower Day, let us honor not only whistleblowers, but also the spouses, the children, the parents, and the friends who stand beside them. And let us commit ourselves to building a South Africa where doing the right thing does not come at the cost of destroying families. Moving into the program today, we will start with the CEO of the Whistleblower House, Ben Tron, who will provide a brief overview and critique of the proposed Protected Disclosures Bill of South Africa. And thereafter, I will be having a discussion with a South African whistleblower about the impact not only on her, but also on her family. And we will conclude this session with a short input by Ben and myself about the role organizations can play in the whistleblower space. And Fatima and Juvita will keep a keen eye on the questions and on the comments and will alert us at the end of all the discussions of the questions so that we can answer those. So Ben, I hand over to you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ben Theron, as stated, and I'm the CEO of the Whistleblower House. This presentation will be shared afterwards to all participants and attendees, so you don't have to take notes. Let me start off by just giving you the Whistleblower House definition, because it's important to remember that not everybody who approaches the Whistleblower House is necessarily a whistleblower. So it's important to understand, and this is the definition that we provided to the Department of Justice when we made our submissions. A whistleblower is a person who in good faith reports unlawful, irregular, unethical, or harmful conduct to a person or institution that they believe can act on it. It's important to note, whistleblowing is not disloyalty. It's a public interest accountability in action. And it's important to remember that because in many instances, as I go through the presentation, you'll know that the effect of companies and organizations to retaliate. So it's important to understand that it's not disloyal to a company or an organization. Why this bill matters and this critical time. South Africa needed reform. And if you remember, from 2021, President Ramaphosa kept on promising in the State of Nation address that the existing law will be revamped and it will be published, etc. So this bill was, the draft bill was published earlier the year and it closed a month later, and they are currently working through all the stuff. The existing framework has too often left whistleblowers legally recognized but practically exposed. The bill is therefore an important step forward because it broadens protection, recognizes retaliation more seriously, and begins to confront the lived reality of disclosure. The question ultimately is, will this work in practice? The test is not whether the bill looks strong on paper. And remember, South Africa has a myriad of legislation on the books, and very few of them are in fact being practiced properly and being applied and are effective in South Africa. The test is whether it works when a person who is suspended, isolated, threatened, sued, disciplined, financially ruined, or made unemployable after speaking up. And every word that I mentioned there is what whistleblowers go through on a day-to-day basis. And you later on in this conversation, you will hear Bianca speaking to that. That is the implementation test. The central concern is not the intention of the law, It is how it will function in reality. What is our position and the way forward? The whistleblower supports the direction of the bill. However, the bill will not provide sufficient holistic protection. It is matched by an institutional design coupled with early intervention, practical support, enforceable consequences for retaliation, etc. So the whistleblower supports the direction of the bill. However, the bill will not provide sufficient holistic protection unless it is matched by strong institutional design coupled with early intervention, practical support, and enforceable consequence for retaliation. Rights without access, resource, and implementation do not protect people in crisis. Let me talk a little bit about, and a little bit, Liesel started introducing this topic when she did the introduction. What whistleblowers experience. And you'll hear a little bit more about this in real practical terms when Bianca comes on. In practice, whistleblowers are often immediately placed on the back foot, and typically they are suspended from where they work and they suffer. They disclose in good faith, often without realizing that they are making a legally significant disclosure. In many instances, whistleblowers don't realize they are whistleblowers. All they want to do is to just go to a supervisor or somebody in the organization that says, I see something is wrong. Somebody is stealing. If you look at the current Madlanga process, one person stood up and said something huge is happening. And what we saw the last few months is absolutely the unfolding of a corrupt system. And that is one person that was willing to come forward and say something is wrong. They usually need specialist advice before, during, and after disclosure. Yet that advice is not readily known or accessible. Our experience is that a whistleblower comes forward, they in fact come forward with information, and they get hit with a ton of bricks. And when they are suspended, they are fired, they don't have an income, they start looking around and ask on the internet, what organizations are there that can support me? And that's how they get to come across to the Whistleblower House. What is needed is that something be set up that is known nationally, that people know where to go and how to operate before they blow the whistle. The organizational response, as I said earlier, is often disciplinary, suspension, victimization, reputational attack, isolation, or allegations that the whistleblower has brought the organization into disrepute. Our recommendations, we have 5 of them. We need an independent protection mechanism. Whistleblowers need a clearly identifiable independent protection mechanism. Protection cannot depend on a fragmented system spread across multiple institutions, each with different mandates, processes, and levels of capacity. The current bill, as it was published, speaks about the whistleblower should resort, when it comes to security, should resort under the NPA, Office of Witness Protection. Somehow they make an assumption that the whistleblower will not be acted against, and therefore the financial requirement falls away. And they speak a little bit about psychological. So it's fragmented, it is not cohesive, and etc. A person in crisis must know where to go. They must know what will happen next and who is responsible for protecting them. What we need is real protection, not only legal rights. Protection must begin early. As I spoke, they need to, before they blow the whistle, they need access to information. The system should provide immediate risk assessment, interim safety measures, specialist legal guidance, psychological support, and where necessary, financial support. The Whistleblower House, the presentation is built on 4 years of lived experience by the Whistleblower House that have helped in excess of 300 whistleblowers. And it's critical that these items that I've mentioned now be incorporated into a holistic support. A whistleblower who loses income, legal footing, safety, and mental stability cannot be protected by a remedy that arrives years later. We have whistleblowers in South Africa that have been battling since 2015 and 2016 for their rights. That is not acceptable in today's society. Safe and practical reporting channels. Anonymous and confidential reporting must be operational, secure, and trusted. It is not enough to recognize anonymity in principle. The system must protect identity, control information flow, reduce exposure, if not eradicated, and ensure that disclosures reach competent institutions quickly so that action can be taken. strong anti-retaliation enforcement. Retaliation must carry clear consequences. The system must provide remedies that whistleblowers can realistically access, including urgent interim relief where appropriate, protection against occupational detriment, and accountability for those who punish disclosure. For too long, people get fired. They get disciplined, they get fired, and they've got to fight to get their rights back. And years later, they are broken, the families are broken, and only then, if they are lucky, they actually get a little bit of recompensation. If retaliation is predictable and consequence-free, the law, no matter how you change it, will not change behavior. And it's important that this recommendation 4 be implemented. Coordinated disclosure management, I spoke about the central point of contact. Disclosures must be routed quickly to the right investigator or enforcement body. Everybody who lives in South Africa know how the Madlanga Commission is uncovering corruption and rot in the SAPS. That need to be fixed so that the investigative process can unfold. The current risk is what whistleblowers are left to navigate a confusing system alone, while evidence weakens and retaliation escalates. South Africa needs a coordinated disclosure management model that tracks matters, allocates responsibility, and prevents whistleblowers from falling between institutions. You cannot have multiple institutions where a whistleblower has to navigate between different organizations. We recommend a single coordinating unit for whistleblower management in Africa. The unit should coordinate specialist legal support. When I talk about support in this bullet, it is qualified, competent people that know what they're doing, and they do it with finesse, humble, humility, etc. Psychosocial support, financial assistance, security risk referral, disclosure routing, case tracking, and national reporting. And not just reporting, but actual action must be taken. This could include a vetted specialist panel of attorneys, trained, competent attorneys, a panel of qualified psychologists, an emergency support fund, which is critical, and clear referral pathways to the Office of Witness Protection, where physical protection is required. So what we are trying to say in this slide is, actual fact, a holistic model. A structure could be housed within or formally linked to the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, provided that it's properly sourced, independent in function, and designed around the reality of whistleblower risk. If we've done all that, how do we measure success and how do we know that something is successful? A successful whistleblower framework would mean that a person who speaks up can access advice early, report safely, receive protection quickly, remain financially psychologically supported, and know that retaliation will be met with consequences. None of these were in place when Bianca came forward previously, and you'll hear that story firsthand in a short while. The public interest is protected only when the person who discloses is protected in practice. South Africa has really reached the point where whistleblower protection must move beyond policy intent to practical reality. In our opinion, the bill is a necessary step forward, but its success will depend on whether it creates a system, integrated system, I must add, that works when the pressure is real, retaliation is immediate, and the whistleblower is alone. What does that support look like for that person? A law that looks strong on paper but fails in implementation will repeat the very failures it seeks to correct. It may look strong on paper, but if we fail in implementation, we will not solve the problem and will just continue with the problem. In closing, the Whistleblower House provides practical support resources for whistleblowers, as I've indicated previously. It includes guidebooks on legal, financial, safety and security, and psychological considerations. These are the 4 categories what we've identified the whistleblowers need. And the resources are there on the Whistleblower House website. It's a whistleblower guidebooks, and we ask people to, in fact, spread the word so people know where to go and find assistance and advice and guidance on how to blow the whistle, what to do when they start suffering financially, psychologically, security, etc. We ask people to donate willingly to us. We are an NGO, We assist whistleblowers without charging them anything, and we need financial support. Lastly, when you know somebody wants to blow the whistle, ask them to go to whistleblowerhouse.org and they can apply for assistance. This is what we do on a day-to-day basis. This is what we live for day and night. And thank you for the opportunity. Liesl?
Thank you, Ben. I can see huge appreciation with all the reactions. All right, thank you so much for that insight. And I do hope that the lawmakers listen to you with all those good suggestions. Colleagues, we now move to the next part of this co-hosted webinar between the Whistleblower House and the Ethics Institute. And I want to introduce a dear friend of mine, Bianca Goodson, and I'm going to just read a little bit. One can write a book about Bianca. I'm amazed that she hasn't written a book yet, but maybe that will come one day. But Bianca, I'm just briefly going to inform everyone what you blew the whistle on, and then we're going to have a discussion. Okay, so Bianca Goodson served as the Chief Executive Officer of Trillion Management in 2016, correct? Yeah. And Trillion Management was a South African consulting firm and a subsidiary of Trillion Capital. This firm was owned by Salim Essa, an associate of the powerful Gupta family. Now everyone in South Africa knows who it is. For our foreign colleagues, you can do a quick Google search. So the Gupta family was accused of growing rich of its strong relationship with then President Zuma. Bianca quickly started noticing shady activities. The firm was using its connections to land lucrative government contracts, such as from National Energy Company, Eskom, and then handing them to external partners. Feeling lied to by her superiors about the company's activities, Bianca resigned from Trillion in April 2026 after a few months working in the company. Although she feared legal consequences and defamation, Bianca did decide to speak up. She testified to the public protector, whose report appeared in October that year. In 2017, after the release of the hashtag Gupta leaks, a large collection of emails to the South African media, Bianca stepped back into the fire and made an external disclosure by releasing a public statement with supporting documents. Her statement detailed how Trillion would secure government work, pass it on to internationally recognized companies, and pocket half the proceeds. Bianca rendered a great service to South Africa, an immense service, and she was one of the first state capture whistleblowers. But all of this came with a huge price tag that neither she nor her family could anticipate in their wildest dreams. Bianca, welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me. Thank you, Liesl.
Yeah, sure. Bianca, can you take us back to that moment when you realized you could no longer remain silent? What made you decide to speak up?
So I didn't speak up for a long time. Right? I remember the moment that made me resign. That it's a weird moment, I think, when you look at it in hindsight. But so my speaking up came in tranches. I think first I was actually approached by the public protector at the time because I actually didn't know what state capture was. Everyone was suspecting these issues at the time, if you remember back to 2016. But when I did make my statement public, which was 18 months after I left Trillion, that was when more information came to light. Like you said, the Gupta leaks, the investigative journalists were taking a very strong stance and been able to join a lot of dots. And bizarrely, Liesl, one of the things that actually was hindering further investigations into state capture was actually the anonymity of the whistleblowers. Okay. Because we needed to stand behind our evidence so that it could actually be, evidence. We didn't have any commissions then. The Zondo Commission only came much later. So that was what happened. I needed to stand behind my work and say, this is what I experienced. This was my first-hand knowledge. And it felt like it just had to happen. And I'm so glad that I did, because around about the time, there were many other whistleblowers that came forward as well, with similar stories of what was happening in state capture.
But Bianca, you said, it's only after 18 months that you finally blew the whistle or spoke out. I also remember that at some point you told me that you couldn't even look at yourself in the mirror during that time. Do you want to explain why that was?
It was so hard. So obviously, when I resigned on personal suspicions that something was not right. And in my mind at the time, it was just a matter of, okay, I'm walking away from this, And I promise you, it wasn't like 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from one of the infamous investigative journalists in South Africa, Sam Sol from Amabungane. And that was probably one of the very first indications of, oops, this is not just going to be a normal, I'm just walking away, So in the back of your mind, you have this battle going on where you know that something wasn't good, but you don't know exactly what it is. During that period of time, then that fear got escalated because the public protector approached me. And when I was seeking advice, I didn't even know the public protector existed. And that's not just my ignorance. That is like, when you're such an average citizen, why would you need to consider institutions like that? And when I started getting legal advice, then that's when the magnitude of this started coming up. So then you're sitting with this on your own. Can't actually speak to anybody because you don't know. At that time for us, we didn't even know if we could approach law enforcement. People telling you that your life is at risk, that you should consider leaving the country, that you've got to make backups of all your data and hide them in the pool pump, for example. And you're sitting with this, right? And the only people I could speak to at the time was my husband, and I approached pastors, my parents, and it felt as though you're looking at yourself and it's like a movie. That this just doesn't make sense. So there was an enormous amount of fear, because nobody knew what this actually meant. And that was the fear. And the more you're sitting with it, the more headlines are breaking about how complicated this is, what significant figures in politics and in commerce and utilities are all implicated. The most crippling fear, I think, and the worst part, I think, is that it's not instantaneous. It was there for over a period. It started over a period of a year, and it's real. That was the delay. And you can't sit with it. So it's almost as though, well, you just want to get it out so that you can actually then deal with the consequences, as opposed to being paranoid that they're there and it's like, well, if some people want to kill me, let them kill me now, kind of thing. So during that phase, the personal impact was very significant, because looking in a mirror and trying to do something as simple as blow drying your hair becomes almost impossible, because you actually can't recognize the person on the other side. You just don't know, who am I? How am I this person?
But you say, you were sort of, okay, let this come out and then deal with the consequences. But did you expect the consequences to be what it was? Do you want to elaborate a bit on those?
Nobody knew. And that's the thing, like now years later, I can sit back and I can try and think about, would I do it again? Was there anybody that maybe should have shared information with me that maybe could have? Back then, our whistleblower support was very limited. So there was an organization called Pluff. There was one lady that was helping me at the time. Excuse me, and she couldn't articulate it. All that she could warn me was how the headlines would be. And she would just say, okay, B, you're going to trend for like a week or two, right? But then it will die down. So we spoke about the trending element of it, right? Which I thought to myself, okay, 2 weeks is fine. Nobody was able to tell me that complex PTSD would develop from that, which is one of the worst mental sort of states to have. Nobody would tell me that my personal relationships would completely deteriorate. what it would personally do to me and how it would completely alter the way that I perceive myself, the world, other people. Nobody told me that I would lose my job or my career would take the impacts that it would. These are all things that I eventually realized in time afterwards. But there was no way of knowing that then.
And I mean, it's what is now 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years already.
Okay.
And what are you still experiencing, Bianca, from that, all those consequences? Yeah. What's the impact still on you?
Look, over 10 years, I think maybe, you know how life ebbs and flows, and I feel sometimes maybe the worst now is over. So the experience now for me is a little bit better, which I will explain, but I think maybe let me explain, maybe during the process, it was really bad. So CPTSD is when you carry all these symptoms of PTSD every day, and it's underpinned by the fact that you carry trauma daily. So it's not an instantaneous trauma. It's actually a trauma that sits with somebody for a year. What it does is it changes your brain. So this is where people can't sort of maybe understand it sometimes, is that you live with this fear that you're going to die, and you actually normalize that you would be assassinated or killed, or that your kid could be killed on any given day. And that becomes your normal. And that's not normal. So that was hard. That's over though. So that I don't live with anymore. But that was the fact that, you just you take a kid to school. I mean, like when the incident of Babita occurred, that scared me so much because that could have been me any day. And then so you carry this anxiety and this depression, and honestly, like you're living in a state of trauma for 8 years in my case. And then my kid, who was about 5 years old when this started, for those 8 years, in her most developmental, fragile sort of years, what it normalized for her was that that's what moms are like. And her perception of, well, I come home from school, I want to do my homework, but my mom is just too scared and wants to just pour a glass of wine to just numb her feelings. That became my daughter's view of normal. And the isolation that we lived with, because I was just always scared to go out. I mean, that part I still probably live with. But that part wasn't right. And that was underestimated. And it's really horrible. And then because of all of that, people, I think, also underestimate the fact that on any given day, you still just have to get up, do the school run, make dinner, and put food on the table. So you're carrying all this stuff daily for 8 years, and life has to still go on. Life doesn't stop. You still have to find a job. You still have to show up for work. You still have to do all the things that you have to do, and it's exceptionally difficult to carry all of that. I don't think any one person was ever intended to actually carry all of that alone for that period of time.
Lots of love to you.
Thanks.
On the screen also. Bianca, now, did you receive any support from your family and your friends? Mum, dad, your husband at the time?
So again, it went through phases, right? So in the beginning, when there was a lot of uncertainty, I lost the support that I needed. And in hindsight, I understand why. So for example, my church, I approached my pastors, asking them for guidance, and their advice was, put your head down and don't bring this up. And I looked at these people and I'm like, really? I still attend the same church, but their position was coming from a position of immense fear. So I can't judge them for that. And they really cared about me and my daughter. So lost that support, I suppose. And they only later, that relationship built again.
Okay.
My parents were also there, but they tried as much as they could. I mean, I remember once my father saying to me, my dad, oh gosh, he has this little stick that he keeps underneath his bed, and nopgiri for people in South Africa. And there was once I was just terribly, terribly scared. And he says, I will come to Joburg with my nopgiri and no one will hurt you. And I was like, do you have any idea the forces that fighting now? So I tried, my parents really stepped up. They tried in whichever way they could to just support me. It is really regrettable that my husband at the time, I think the fear was paralyzing. And I think that also had a bit of a traumatic effect on him because the way he handled that wasn't great.
Mm.
In our marriage, unfortunately, it became violent. And then my daughter had to see that, which was horrible. But then domestic violence then was sort of unfolding all at the same time in my house. Mm-hmm. Right. So that was horrible. So I had to leave that situation. So I got divorced. But there were people that did show up. You one of them.
Yeah. So you spoke about Chloe and that, her normal. But what else, so she saw this mother, she thought, this is how mothers are. Do you think there was an emotional detachment one way or the other from not only your daughter, who was little then, and then what effect, if there was, or any of the other circumstances, what effect did that have on the development of Chloe?
That is the biggest, the only reason why I would ever say that I would never do this again is actually the impact that it had on Chloe. So for those of you who don't know, Chloe is my daughter. Chloe didn't ask for this. Chloe didn't put her hand up for this. Chloe did not encourage her mother in any way to become a whistleblower in South Africa. And yet all the consequences that befell me impacted her the most, I think. And that part I regret the most. So then from this, there's now this divorce that happened. So we go into this co-parenting situationship, which Chloe didn't ask for, firstly. And what had happened there is that Chloe started psychologically splitting from a very, very early age. And she couldn't sort of integrate her sense of self because at the same time, I mean, unfortunately, if you Google me, you'd see interviews on BBC, Al Jazeera, numerous global publications. So Chloe, in one instance, had this view of mom's a hero, right? Appearing in books and stuff like that. But then at the other time, when she comes home, she's like, all that she saw was mom being defeated. Which is these two very big extremes that don't help her integrate her sense of self. Her academics fell. Chloe has been in a constant also thing of trauma because she would fight with me, but she would freeze with the rest of the world. She struggled socially. The very first time that she actually started making friends was actually only in grade 7, which was last year. Now we are a lot more stable than we used to be. She's had to go for extensive psychological therapy with the treatment being specifically trauma as well. And slowly we've been able to piece things together, but all the psychological impacts that it had on me, and maybe I was a bit better because then I was in my late 30s, going into 40. For her, with her brain still developing, I think the neurobiology of my child has actually been affected by this. But I know we can fix it, but it's really regrettable. She has got, for the longest time, Chloe lived in this view of there's nothing good in the world. People are just out to hurt you. She believed that she was scared of everything. She just had this innate sense of fear. And slowly we are undoing that now, but it's been disastrous. And no kid, I didn't have a kid for her to have that life.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Do you want to take a moment?
No, I'm good. So I'm with you.
Okay. And I mean, what support at that point in time, Bianca, if any? You said, okay, the church or the pastors, they withdrew. Was there any other support that you received? You had friends, and thanks for mentioning some of them. But if you think psychological support, I mean, you lost your job, no income, um, maybe your house. Are you going to lose your house or not? All of those things. Was there anyone that came to the fore to help with those practical issues, if I can put it that way?
Yeah. Yes, in various ways. So financially, my parents stepped up to support me. And I mean, I think up to today, I still carry quite a lot of guilt and shame for that because they're retired, right? And it shouldn't be their job to have to step in and then financially support a 40-year-old kid, who actually, for all intents and purposes, had a really, really promising career prior and was, completely financially independent. So that financially put a strain on them. I think emotionally also on their side. Then there were individuals who did step up to try and help, especially on the employment side, but I don't think it was completely thought through in relation to maybe how messed up I was, if I'm going to be completely blunt and honest. So yeah, there was that, and there's a lot of recognition. So I'm trying to think of what else. My psychiatrist stepped up. I mean, when I couldn't afford therapy and I needed therapy, she helped. But the services like the Whistleblower House, for example, what they offered, I never ever really got that. I think one of the biggest support elements that I did get that maybe nobody speaks about is actually how I think the media stepped into support as well, because there was a lot of retaliation against me. And I actually think the media, knowing that there was a lot of integrity behind my disclosure, actually protected me quite a bit against some of the allegations. From a safety perspective, my neighbors rallied around me. From where I find myself now, I actually see my colleague as part of the audience. Where I find myself now in my career is I've been able to start building up, a bit of a career now again. So there are people that have been able to sort of see through the trauma and identify me not necessarily as a whistleblower, but as a person.
Yes.
And that's starting now. But for quite a long time, it wasn't. It felt very alone.
And I see, Bianca, there was a question or chat that quickly popped up that I looked at that said, why couldn't Bianca keep her job? Now, I'm not 100% sure which job the colleague there is referring to, but we know that you resigned from Trillian because you saw all of those things, and that was only but 3 months. You were the CEO for 3 months, and then you said, okay, I'm out of here. But tell us, it's always, it's part of the literature actually, that whistleblowers struggle to get a job after they have lost their job because they blew the whistle. What has been your experience?
So there's a couple of, I can see the question from Lily. Let me tackle it. So it was quite interesting. So after resigning from Trillian, I actually did get a job. I got a job from Sage. And that's actually quite a lot of that on the internet at the moment. And when I made my statement public, which was around about the 17th of September 2017, I think, the CEO of Sage fired me. And the reason and it was the day after the headline broke, because my disclosure wasn't just a statement, it was also a copy of my computer with all the supporting information. And he fired me. There's no reasons. He's never publicly said this is the reason why I'm firing Bianca, but everyone suspects the reason for that is because people just don't want to be associated with it. Right? Nobody knew where this was going, and it's just the association alone was just something that I think people just feared. I don't know if it was personal. I don't think it was personal. It felt very personal.
Yeah, of course.
But that was the case. And then Magda Versica stepped up and she's like, Bianca, come and work at Signia. The issue with that, though, is that wasn't really a match for my skills, in the financial services. So I think people stepped up and tried to close the gap, but it was square peg in round hole. And then after that, when you apply for jobs, and I mean, I can show Lily, I've got over the years, I think I've got over, I don't know, 10,000 job applications. Nobody tells you why they're not taking on, but all they need to do is just Google you. And I think mostly people just don't want, there's fear of what if she sees stuff in our organization. I think there's fear of, you know, if she stays, you know, public and, you know, keeps advocating for stuff like that, you know, the companies just maybe don't want to be formally associated with things like that. But that is the truth. But nobody has ever actually had the courage to come to my face and say, okay, we're not taking you on because it's a skills mismatch, which I would completely assume. Or they would say something like, you know, we're afraid of you. We just don't want anyone like you in our space. I mean, it just didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense up to today.
But you do have a job now. You also establish your own business.
I did. So that was, I mean, I had to do that. I had to do consulting. So there, I think companies were slightly more open, where you're part of us, but not really formally part of us kind of thing. So I did have an organization, my own company that I was able to get some sort of revenue through. I've decided to walk away from that. It's just way too much admin, to be completely honest. But yeah, I have settled down with the company now that I'm quite happy with. Starting again, there's a proper midlife crisis, I suppose.
It's time for you to buy a new car. So isn't that part of the midlife crisis? And go overseas, you know, for a year or so.
Yeah.
Bianca, I'm not sure how many people know, but you are one of the two co-founders. We are on the screen of the Whistleblower House. And I hope everyone knew that. And it was actually Bianca's idea to establish the Whistleblower House. So yeah, there's 400 plus whistleblowers very happy about that. So Bianca, tell us why, and you've mentioned some of it already, but why did you want to create this organization that we discussed that one good Saturday afternoon? And by the Monday it was, we made it, we registered
Official.
it. Yeah, made it official. So why Bianca?
So Pluff at the time, right, was amazing. Where they honestly were, but their mandate was very restrictive in that they were only able to offer legal support, which I am so grateful for in hindsight, because honestly, legally, I didn't know what I was doing. And that was cool. But I mean, we did this in 2022. So I had already been like in this traumatized state for 4-6 years. The psychological impact, the financial impact, all of that now fully realized on my side. Right. And interestingly enough, when I was Googling for help, you know this, right? In the Netherlands, there was a place that was literally called the Whistleblower House, set up by government.
Yeah.
That was offering the support in the Netherlands, but it had just closed. And I just researched them and it was FOMO. I was like, wow, I wish I was Dutch, because if I was there, I would have been able to get this support, and how different could my life have been, if I got this. But it had closed, and, obviously it didn't help that I was in South Africa. So that's why we started it. Up to today, Liesel, I do not wish my experience on anybody. I don't. Even the people that hurt me, I wouldn't wish this experience on them. So I am so grateful for what you and Ben and Ivan were able to do with the Whistleblower House. I mean, to know that close to 400 people potentially don't have to suffer the fate that I did, got better advice. I mean, I can see a lot of the people that you support remain in that anonymity. They don't break that anonymity veil. And that's one of the things that I wonder when I look back, would I have been better off if I didn't, put myself out there publicly? But I just see the support that people have gotten. And that I'm grateful for. That's where you sometimes wonder, okay, the scars could be worth it.
Yeah, that contribution, not only to the country, but that huge contribution to make life somewhat easier for all the other whistleblowers that are there. Because, we often know, well, obviously we know of whistleblowers, but we we don't know of all of them. There are so many that keeps to themselves and are there in the background and fighting their struggles on their own each and every day. So so thank you. You did great there, amongst all the other great things you've done. Bianca, if someone listening today here is aware of wrongdoing, but is afraid to blow the whistle or afraid of the consequences because they fear what might happen to their family, what would you say to them?
I'm going to spin that question a little bit because I still sit with it. Hey? If Chloe walked in my shoes one day and she came to me with this dilemma, what would I tell her? And that part cuts me because there's a part of me that would say to my kid, you got to do what's right. But because I love her so much, like I said, I would never wish this for her. But this is, I think, where the benefit of years of therapy has come in. This is what I know, and this is what I've got to believe in. And I stay very strong to this. I will not live the rest of my days on this earth without hope and without belief that there are good people. I think it is very few and far between, right? But that I choose, it's a choice on my side to not believe the opposite. I believe that there are good people. I believe that there is hope. And I do believe that fighting is very difficult. But I think it's worth it. And so I would, and this is the part that really makes me emotional, is that if Chloe was in my shoes and I had to give her advice, I actually would encourage her to do it. It's hard, but how do you not do it?
You know, what I remember is you were also offered asylum.
Yeah, Belgium.
By Belgium, yeah. Off you go to Belgium. And at some point in time you said to me, but you thought at that point in time that, no, I don't want to go to Belgium because what am I going to tell my daughter one day? You know, that I left everything just there. And how can I then be proud of, when I tell my daughter, no, we fled, basically. And
yeah,
now we still finish.
I remember refusing that offer because what is the point of it then if you're going to be on the other side? Look, and I'm not taking stabs at anybody who felt that they had to leave for safety reasons. But for me personally, the rationale was, well, one, the weather's not nice. We don't speak the language. It's not nearly. And it's like, what's the point? It's like, if I'm going to be this cat amongst the pigeon, then I'm going to fight it. I'm going to be a cat properly. I'm not going to start something and so I think if things were really bad, if really and truly our safety was maybe more significantly compromised, I probably would have for Chloe's sake. But it was important here because we needed people to stand by the fact that this had happened. This is what we witnessed. And if we needed that version of corruption to at least end, because I know not all corruptions ended, but that version of corruption to at least end, there had to be people to at least say, this is what I witnessed, this is what I saw, and this is what's not true. People like the evidence leaders at the Zondas Commission needed witnesses. And, and we needed to be here.
Yeah.
So anyway,
thank you. Glad you're not in Belgium.
Yeah, me too.
Bianca, now Zoe, she is now about 15, 16.
Oh, she wishes she was 13.
Oh, she's 13. Okay. But, does she understand now what you did? Does she has,
Yeah. I mean, she decides to irritate. She Googles me, and then some of those pictures come up, and she's like, "Oh, Mom, look how thin you used to be." No, but she did actually last year. She had to write an essay or something like that. They were reading the book of Malala. In school, and she needed to write an essay on bravery, and she actually decided to write an essay on me.
Oh wow!
And I was like, wow. So she her perspective is changing. So that's cool. She is becoming a lot stronger, and I see her self-confidence building up where she can, her definition of what's right and wrong and knowing that choosing the right decisions is very difficult. That is becoming a slightly more solidified in her. And that I'm proud of. So she gets it. She does get it. In her young age, though, she's very emotionally mature. She also does say that she does feel very jaded about South Africa because it's just not right that so many things go wrong, which, interestingly enough, for a 13-year-old, I think that's actually a very mature way of just looking at the world. And she just looks at our potholes, for example, and that informs her statement. But she sees a lot of good. And that's also because people like you and Ben are in our lives, you know. So she's exposed to both. And for me, that's balance. And that's, I'm proud of that.
I must say, writing an essay about your mum when you're writing about bravery, that is, I don't know, I don't have words. I just think it's phenomenal. Really, no, it's fantastic. Sure, I think she has come a long way. And yeah, maybe I can tell everyone that you, so Bianca has been trying to, just have a normal life. And then she and Chloe got a dog, Zoe. And now they got another dog, whose name is Joey. So I don't know who knows, who's calling.
That is my psychiatrist. So part of my therapy, I mean, I've been treated for trauma since 2018. I'm still actively in psychotherapy for it because I'm not completely healed yet. But part of it was to get the golden retriever dogs to help us just regulate. And you know what they do? Whenever we have these unexplained waves of fear, I mean, we'd be sitting just doing nothing and suddenly we just feel scared. These dogs just come in, they just sit with us on the couch and they just make you feel safe. And that has actually been very significant towards us just being able to release that fear of okay, everything's scary around us, Yeah, so we've got 2 dogs.
Well, at this point, I have to unfortunately stop the discussion because of time. But Bianca, thank you so much. Really, to everyone out there, Bianca has been sort of retreating away from the whistleblower label, stigma, and trying to get on with her life. And she came out of the woods for us. Thank you so very much. And please send our love to Chloe and Zoe and Joey. And we'll talk. Please don't go anywhere. I'm sure that there's a lot of comments for you to read in the next few moments. And then, of course, there are the questions that's coming. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Hey. Ben, what can we say, colleagues? Thank you for all your comments there. And I'm sure Bianca is going to read them all now. So we need to move on to just 5 minutes from Ben and myself before we go into questions. And Ben, this is just tell us in 5 minutes, what the Whistleblower House will be doing to socialize the bill. What should organizations do?
Let me start off by saying we are working hard and we are trying to work with the Department of Justice because they are responsible for the crafting. They've had a significant amount of responses and they've got to look at each one to see how do they fit together, do they blend everything together, etc. So we are in communication with them. Let's take 2 steps, 3 steps into the future. 6 months, 2 years, 3 years down the line when the bill is completed and it's authorized and signed by the president. We've got to realize that wrongdoing and corruption is a societal problem. It's not MPA SIU police problem. It's a societal problem. If you look at the news split, the headlines, etc. So what is required is that we need a societal, a, a full whole of society approach to ensure that everyone understands that unless we do something soon, we will not have a South Africa to work for. Our children and children's children, grandchildren, there will not be funds because our debt at the moment is in the trillions. I think we're close to 70 to 80% of our GDP with debt. And the money is not being spent on infrastructure, it's being stolen. So we need something to stop that. So it's a whole of society problem. So what we've been doing is to start creating partners and networks and partnerships, and so that we can start talking when that bill comes through. So let me give you some examples. Religious organizations are important. So we have started with the African Council of Churches. We've been talking to them. I was spoken last year on the Supreme Council of the South African Council of Churches. Very important organization. The Jewish Board of Deputies. We want to make contact with them. Bear in mind, the Whistleblower House have 2 full-time employees, myself and Cholofelo. And then we have 2 other part-time people, finance and then communication. That's it. So we are working our butts off to make sure that we have the networks in place. So we have in the religious portion, we're talking about that. What we need to do is to start talking to businesses, because every whistleblower is related to an organization. So we need, and we've got the relationship with Business Leadership South Africa, with what's the lady's name? We have that relationship, and we will continuously working with that. WUSA, who's Business Unity South Africa. So those are the mother bodies. In addition to that, we've got to talk to government, both from national, and let's not talk about the quality of people we have there, the things happening, national, provincial, and local. SALGA is a critical component because they take care of us, of the services that we use every day, water, sanitation, etc., and the corruption at that level. If you look at Johannesburg, city of Johannesburg, totally collapsed. There are small towns in the country that have no infrastructure because the money gets stolen this way. And if you just want to do a little research, that's it. So that's in terms of government. We need to talk to unions in the organization. So when a whistleblower, when I did the presentation, I spoke about the challenge. So when a whistleblower comes forward and they get victimized, the unions need to understand how to stand up, use the law, and protect the individual employee. So the unions are important. Legal fraternity, at the moment that it's a death, there is no capacity in South Africa. We have 10, 12 organizations on our books. We need 200, 300 legal firms that we can count on, and we need to grow that capacity. Psychological services, we need to grow that so that people can get the support. Financially, we at the moment are suffering. We can't support our whistleblowers as we should. And we need to build that capacity next to government so we can provide the services. Law enforcement agencies. I started talking about the MPA, the SIU, we've got a MOU with. We are now starting to talk to SAPS, because when the Madlanga Commission was established, they suddenly realized how huge the problem is with corruption. They had less than 10 whistleblower reports over the last 2 years. So it is not a good thing not to have whistleblowers. It's a bad thing, because if you see the headlines coming out, those people ought to have an opportunity. So we started talking to SAPS as well. What we have, and what I'm trying to say is the network, we need to grow the network. So when, as that bill goes through the process, we can start talking to the network and mobilize, educate, get advocates for whistleblowers to actually stand up. The most important, I think, is the employer organizations. If they understand the value of a whistleblower, they will change their attitude. And let me give 1 or 2 examples, just quickly, and then I'll start wrapping up. We had a whistleblower from the PIC, and the person was involved with Daybreak Farms. And when the person approached the PIC, who was funding Daybreak Farms, the value was about 15 million. What does the PIC care about 15 million? They talk about trillions. When the SIU started investigating, the value of that 15 million is now around 1 billion. 200 million plus.
Yeah.
So the whistleblower is an early warning system, and if you listen to the whistleblower at the time when they come forward, you could save millions. And what we need to understand as South Africans is that when a whistleblower comes forward, it's right at the tip of the iceberg, right at the beginning of the corruption. And if you kill it there, the billions that's flowing out of the PIC today is then stopped. So that's one example. The SAA example, there are many other examples, but one example is the one with Daybreak Arms. Point I'm making is that we're building that relationship. So when that bill gets passed, we can actually, at a very rapid pace, educate society through the different vehicles and avenues, so that what we need to do is to have a protected like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. A lot of work that has gone into it and a lot of work that will still go into it. And I think from the Ethics Institute side, just very briefly, is that we work with organizations, and we believe it's the same as you, is that our employees in an organization is part and parcel of society, the citizens that we want to have the moral courage to speak up when they see something untoward or unethical. So at the Ethics Institute, we work with the organizations, and in terms of the whistleblowing space, we advocate for whistleblowing, and then of course the non-retaliation of whistleblowers, and emphasizing the importance for organizations to know of that tip, which might be very bigger corruption than what they thought. So at the Ethics Institute, then we provide thought leadership. I think there's some resources that's being posted in the chat function, the non-retaliation toolkit, the whistleblowing management toolkit, and because managing whistleblowing reports in the correct way is imperative to ensure that our whistleblowers are protected, and that the identity is protected. And then basically we help organizations to create that safe space psychologically safe space for employees and other stakeholders to tell the organization and society what they have observed. Colleagues, I'm going to stop there now. I can talk a lot more on this, but there are questions. I see Fatima has come onto the screen. Fatima, I'm handing over to you and to tell us or pose the questions that are there in the comments. Thank you, Fatima.
Thank you, Liesl, and huge appreciation from our audience today to both Ben and Bianca for their incredible contributions. Bianca, lots of love to you, lots of hugs, lots of acknowledgement from everyone on the call. You're an absolute inspiration. Thank you for sharing your incredible story. Speaking up is courageous, and doing so while looking after family responsibilities, and even more, or especially brave act. So lots of strength to you, Bianca, and empathy, and everyone really feeling for you. And when you have a moment, we'll also share these, because I do think it's important for you to feel the love. And also lots of encouragements for you to please come out with that book. People are scared to come out, Bianca, and as you, the fear of becoming a target, and in your story is a strength and an inspiration and an encouragement for you to continue to please tell that story. A whistleblower also shared on the call that one couldn't have predicted how long-term and pervasive the impact would have been. It's hard to trust and deal with one's own anxiety. The impact is hard. The values of fairness had taken a knock, and your story really resonates with that. And so really just that continuous encouragement to you, Bianca. A question, though, is that after everything you've been through, and Liesl asked, would you do it again? But a question coming out is, how would you advise whistleblowers to go about reporting, given what you've been through and the difficulties you experienced? Are there any guidance or tips that you would like to share? Bianca, if I can take that to you.
So to that end, when the Whistleblower House was very young, baby Whistleblower House back in 2022, there was a little handbook that I had read. So subsequently, people that are a lot smarter than me, like Liesl and Ben and you guys, have expanded on that. So the toolkits that I have seen on the Ethics Institute's resource center, as well as the Whistleblower House. I mean, the Whistleblower House has got, I think, Ben, you can correct me here, separate chapters on the financial impacts, the psychological impacts, and all the support. I've seen that has been expanded a lot and has added a lot of the lessons that not just me, but Masilo, a lot of the other whistleblowers have learned from too. And honestly, from experiential learning, that is actually the best that I could put forward. I just don't think that this journey is something that you could ever fully prepare for. And for the best of the collective knowledge that we have with Liesl and Ben, it's well documented. If anything else comes up, I know that we'll always update those resources. Sorry, I'm not punting the institutions. I just
Thank you. No, thank you. And we certainly dropped the links to all of the resources on the chat. So please do encourage people to go through them and look at them at their leisure. A question, I mean, you shared a very personal story, and there's a lot of appreciation for the rawness within which you've shared your experience, for what you and your family have been through. What advice can you give to people who need to support a whistleblower and who really don't know how to handle the situation? What can a community who surround a whistleblower do to be supportive and still keep them from being functional? And what advice would you give as to how to either involve or not to involve your community, Bianca?
So a lot of that support I actually got from my psychiatrist, because the truth is that my parents also, as well-intended as they are, they were never brought up with the tools on how to actually support somebody going through ongoing trauma. So there were actually quite a few sessions where my parents were actually pulled into my therapy sessions. And what came out of it at the end of the day was just making the person feel seen. You can't take away the experience. But there is this deep sense of being completely alone, because those consequences sit on you. You know, going to the Zondo Commission, I didn't know, because I didn't trust the legal system. I don't even think I do still now. If it could have spun and I could have ended up in jail. You know, so many other bad things could have happened. And as much as people say that they're there with you and they'll be there for you and they'll fight with you, the consequences at the end of the day still sit on you only. And that's where the being seen, just seen, is one of the most basic things I think that you could give to somebody while they're crying and struggling, and just, that's it. It's just the simple things. So it's that non-judgment. My parents, being old school, always want to try and fix everything. And one of the things that they had to take away from our joint therapy sessions was they can't. And what you want in the moments is just to know that even in the rawest, worst moments and all of that, there's still people that just love you. You know, and then I know it sounds so basic, but that is honestly what it is.
Thank you, Bianca. And I think if we could all give you a group hug at this point, we all probably are just virtually with you giving that group hug, as you can see from the reactions on the screen. Ben, let me come to you. So a lot of appreciation for the great work and the support that the Whistleblower House is doing. Some curiosity around, I'm going to throw a couple of questions together for you, Ben. How does one volunteer time towards the Whistleblower House? And then what mental health support is there for people who are whistleblowers and who are supporters of whistleblowers? So maybe let me start there with you, Ben.
Let me start with the second one first. We have a panel of psychologists. We've approached South Africa, Psychological Society of South Africa, to expand that. And the idea is the moment we have applications, they publish the advertisement that says Whistleblowers need your help, not pro bono like we did 4 years ago, but in actual fact, we pay people nowadays. They will go through a training session to speak about, although they may have trauma experience and trauma qualifications, the whistleblower environment is even more dramatic than just the trauma side. So they need to go through training for the legal side of things to understand what the rights are of the whistleblower. So when they talk, they actually guide the whistleblowers. So they get training. So we want to expand, and as I said in the presentation, we want to expand the 10, 12 people that we have at the moment to probably somewhere around 150 to 200 countrywide. Because at the moment, we've got a concentration in the cities, and therefore everything is virtual. We want to have in every town somebody who can actually support whistleblowers. So that's where we're moving towards. The advertisement may already have been placed in Psychological Society magazine, or it will be published shortly, but we want to expand that. People come to us and ask, how do we volunteer our time? The problem that we have, and we're only 2 people, we have 4 people working, but 2 full-time. The problem they have is we work with sensitive information, and it's very difficult. You can hear the rawness when Bianca speaks. This is 10 years down the line. She's still raw. So when you deal with whistleblowers, number one, you need to deal with them with empathy. So it's important that people understand what people went through. And I spent hours and hours with Bianca and Liesel to understand what the Whistleblower House was about before I took the job on. And as I grew the organization, I could build all those things in. So number one, you must understand the rawness and the hurt, because it's a family behind that. Secondly, we work with very confidential stuff. People open up their hearts and their lives and their family lives. And so we have not had, I've not done that, and I'm the CEO, any volunteers in here, because we've got to check the background. How do we bring somebody randomly in? What hours do they work, etc.? We are not ready for volunteers yet. I am not ready, because it's a very sensitive environment. And you can hear my voice when I talk about these people, because we deal with hurt people, broken people every day. So we're not ready for that yet. We are currently sourcing funding, desperately need funding, so that we can start capacitating the organization, taking care of whistleblowers, taking care. And it's an expensive exercise because lawyers are not cheap. Psychological is not cheap. So, and then the financial support that we provide is absolutely life-saving. We pay 15,000 rand for 6 months. That is not buying a BMW. That's just basic stuff that people need to buy. So I hope I've answered the question.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, huge appreciation, even as you were talking now, from our colleagues in the call for the work that you do at the Whistleblower House, but also the context that you're sketching. While I have you, Demin, and talking about the legislation, there's some curiosity around malicious reporting. And how will the legislation, in your view, cater for whistleblowing that is not done in good faith? The effective whistleblowing, while in most instances they do happen in good faith, there are also those instances where it can be done maliciously or to protect particular individuals. How, your view as a Whistleblower House on this, and how do you think the legislation can possibly address this situation, Ben?
Legislation will deal, as it is right now, it will deal with bona fide whistleblowers. So what we have found is that a whistleblower comes to us, and then the organization say, no, it's a preemptive strike. This is not a real whistleblower because we were about to discipline the individual for poor performance, coming late, tardiness, etc. And suddenly the person became a whistleblower so that they could not act. The legislation will probably, and I think when you look at the draft bill, it clearly says they speak about whistleblower in good faith. I'm not sure how to deal. We qualify everybody, and right at the beginning when our first slide speaks about qualification of a whistleblower, and we only make sure that we try very hard, and we do make mistakes, but we do qualify the whistleblower before we allow them in, because we can't spend these resources on somebody who's not a whistleblower. And the moment our legal people get involved and we start communicating, there's a very fine line which you need to travel. When the employer and the organization respond to the letters, they will then have to put proof on the table that says this is not a whistleblower, this is somebody preemptive strike or not. And the assumption that we make, once we've passed that first hurdle, that person is a client and we will fight to the hilt to ensure that that whistleblower is protected.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben. We are stretched for time. There are so many questions, Liesl, that we want to get to. But perhaps if I can, Liesl, have the last opportunity. Ben, thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. Bianca, coming to you, there's a lot of emphasis from the delegates to say that we need to do better as organizations. We can't encourage whistleblowing in legislation, in our policies, and then not provide a safe environment within our organizations. And so just a reflection from you on that point, and on your reflection on the role of the media in terms of supporting or not supporting whistleblowers. I mean, perhaps a last thought from you, and then Liesl, I'll hand over to you to close. Bianca, your reflections on those.
On the business side, again, if I come back to where my career was, and it was quite significant working in the mining industry and being exposed to billion-rand contracts. There I do, it's a personal view, is that, shareholders, directors, managers within large organizations do need to put people before profits. And at the end of the day, when you look at what corruption, sorry, now I'm not sounding like the whistleblower now, like career model a little bit, right? But when you do look at it, right, businesses are there for shareholder wealth, ultimately, and for stuff like that. But you cannot do that at the risk of the person. And that's the thing, and that's exactly what Ben was saying, that the sustainability of any organization, business, would be by having more ethical people there. That's the sustainability nature of a business. And if you are doing work that is coming through a whistleblower, it means that there's something in your processes that are not working ethically. That does have to stop, but it cannot. The only time it then becomes retaliation towards the person is because there's a desire to not stop the practice. And that is the kind of stuff, in my opinion, that you learn almost at home, that you got to do the right thing, regardless of your job and stuff. And I really just wish that businesses generally had that view, because it's not in the long run going to take away from the essence of the business, which is to make profit and to be sustainable and to keep people in jobs and stuff. You can get both. And I wish that people would just see that it's the long game, not the short game. On the media, I was so lucky, and I've seen people not be so lucky. I invested time in building relationship capital with the journalists before I shared information with them, to see that they carried the same level of integrity. I couldn't always win, because there would still be publications then that would spin a narrative just because they wanted the headline, right? So that same integrity, that same ethical basis is what I really hope that journalists see, because they cannot get a story without a source. And guess what's behind the source? A person with kids and dogs, and you've got to balance all of that, because very soon nobody will come to you if you're that journalist who's just chasing the headline. You may get the award this year, but 5-10 years down the line, nobody's going to want to speak to you. So if you want to maintain sustainability, in my opinion, just generally, I think people just need to have better ethical behavior. Sorry, I'm preaching now. Stop.
Thank you, Bianca. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Liesl. I'll hand back to you. But again, as you can see from the emojis, huge appreciation for both of our speakers for everything that you've shared with us. Thank you very much. Liesl, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Fatima, and also for always handling the questions and the comments in the way that you do. I see there are so many questions and comments, and we will study them afterwards. Fortunately, they are recorded. All that remains for me to say is that thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to all of you for showing your love and your appreciation for the work that is being done by the Whistleblower House, and for the work that Bianca has done, and for everything that how her good deed impacted for so long and still is impacting on her and on Chloe. So, colleagues, with that, I wish you goodbye. I thank you. once again from the bottom of my heart, and I thank you on behalf of all my colleagues at the Ethics Institute and as well as the colleagues at the Whistleblower House.